Joining us now is Lincoln Mitchell. He's a political analyst and adjunct associate professor of political science at Columbia University. Professor, let me begin with Christopher Krebs' firing, sacked by President Trump after he disputed his baseless allegations of voter fraud. How much does this undermine the current democratic process moving forward?
Well, Donald Trump's actions undermine the democratic process, but he's going to be out of office in 2 months. And when he's out of office, no one is going to, I should say this, about a third of the American people will believe that Joe Biden is there fraudulently because he stole the election. And that will be very damaging to America's democracy. That's the real fear here. He is planting this seed and cultivating this idea, and it's going to take root with about a third of the electorate. And that is very damaging. The actual act of firing somebody who just basically told the truth, that doesn't matter so much. Everyone who's the other two-thirds of America knows that Christopher Krebs is telling the truth. And as an individual, he did the right thing, and he will end up in a good place because of this. If he had gone along with Trump, he'd be fired anyway by the new president. So he's making a smart tactical move for his career, and he's doing the right ethical thing as well.
As you know, the Trump campaign has also demanded recounts in a number of states, including Georgia and Wisconsin. Do you think these recounts will produce a different result?
No. I mean, you said it in the program yourself, one of the other guests, but it may move a few hundred votes, but of course it may move a few hundred votes from Trump to Biden. We don't know that it'll necessarily go the other way, and it is almost certain that the margin of victory that Biden had in both of these states is so big that a recount is not going to change it. However, when you do the recount, you keep that discourse alive, that there's something fishy here. There's something not right. So even if you don't change the outcome, if you're Donald Trump, you can, and I suspect he will, say the recount was fraudulent also. The recount will not be fraudulent, just as the original count wasn't fraudulent. But for Trump, the more energy, the more kind of thought he can get behind that, the better it is for his base. And we don't know what he's going to do with that political base. He has made noise about running in 2024. We know that his son, Don Jr., would like to run in 2024. And we know that the base of the Republican Party is still very loyal to Donald Trump. So even after after he leaves office, he will have some political assets.
And the Trump campaign has also waged a number of election lawsuits. Things didn't go quite so well for the president's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, in Pennsylvania yesterday. What do you make of that? And explain to us what you know.
Well, if you were, and I've had conversations with people who follow election law more closely and who are actually lawyers. I'm a political scientist. But if you had a legal problem, whether it had to do with an election or a speeding ticket or a drug bust or anything, you would hire a real lawyer. You wouldn't hire Rudy Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani has become this buffoonish figure in American political life who, for some reason, Donald Trump still trusts. Now, it may be that he has become the lawyer here because not a lot of lawyers want to work for Donald Trump because he never pays them. It's also, these lawsuits are getting thrown out of court and perhaps even laughed out of court. There's no foundation for them. You can scream lawsuit. You can scream, it's like a child, I'm going to sue you, I'm going to sue you. It has no meaning. I live in New York, where Donald Trump has been part of the fabric of this city for decades. Nobody here is afraid of Donald Trump's lawsuits. And nobody in America, nobody who believes in democracy should be either.
And finally, Professor, can you talk about the path to certification? We have a lot of viewers overseas who don't understand how this process works.
You probably have a lot of viewers in the United States who don't understand how this process works either, but let me try. The first thing to remember is that although we speak in the media of the presidential election, the American election, we don't have national elections in the United States. We have 50 statewide elections, 51 if you include the District of Columbia, which does have electoral votes. Within that, we have counties that have their own rules, sometimes their own processes. Sometimes even different counties have different hours of voting than other counties in the same state. So it's federalism at its most extreme. What that means is that at every step of the way, they are legal and in some cases constitutional processes that have to be honored. So for example, the county, and let's take the case of Wayne County, which is Detroit in Michigan, because it was in the news lately. The county counts the votes and then they get the number, right? The who got how many votes. Then the county the county board of elections or board of canvassers, depending on what it's called in each state, has to certify that and push it upward to the state legislature, right? So in Wayne County, we saw that the Republicans, as far as I can see, on the notion that a lot of African-American people voted in Michigan, Detroit, which a lot of African American people live in Detroit and they are allowed to vote. That is their right, and they voted. But they thought that was somehow prima facie evidence of fraud. So initially they refused to certify that. This really is striking because this shows you how low-level partisan officials can throw a monkey wrench into the operation. Fortunately, it looks like that's going to be overridden. Then it goes to the state level. And this is not a legal issue so much as a constitutional issue.
Right.
The Constitution says this, that the state legislature, not the state government, the state legislature has to determine whether the results are good. And once that happens, it gets pushed up to the Electoral College, where the electors meet within each state capital. They don't all go to Washington or anything. And then they vote. And then that gets certified by Congress in January.
All right. I think even I learned something, Professor. So thank you so much, Professor Lincoln Mitchell, with that very detailed explanation.